The next speaker is a good friend of mine, lifelong activist, brilliant presenter who will be doing a backflip when he gets on stage. No, Joe.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural meeting of Club 44. That's Four Foreskins Club. I got involved with this movement because I saw Eric's presentation at Harvard, and I really do not have a lot of depth in the activist movement, but what I do have experience with is nonprofit organizations. I've served on several boards, and I told Eric before he went to law school that if he ever started a nonprofit organization, that I would like to be part of it. So he called me, and here I am. So I've been doing foreskin restoration for 30 years. It takes a while. The good news is that as you get older, your skin becomes more flexible and stretchy. The bad news is that that's why your arms get flabby. But I completely support this organization and its goals. So what I'm going to talk about a little today is building a sustainable movement, because we can have a conference now and then, we get random donations, but we need to be more systematic about it and more organized. So what are the sources of funding for an organization like this? Individuals, of course, we have some of those now. Foundations, although that's a much more problematic source for a whole variety of reasons. I did a little bit of research on foundations. I couldn't find anyone that supported intactivism. There are several, like the Melinda Gates Foundation, which supports circumcision. Also, foundations are notoriously difficult to get grants from, and the grants that you get, if you get them, are usually restricted to a specific program. What we need are unrestricted sources of funding so we can support overhead and the things that we need to do. Corporations, I'll go into this in more detail later, but there are corporations, and I think we can identify them, that would have an interest in supporting this topic. Events, yeah, events are wonderful. You know, they're great for bringing people together, for giving more visibility to the organization, but they don't usually raise a lot of money, and they always involve a lot of work. And then there's legacies. Now, legacies come about when you've had someone who supports an organization for a long time, and you encourage that person to include the organization in his or her will. So all of these things need to come together to have a sustainable organization. We talk about the giving pyramid, and often this is an image that people who are doing capital campaigns use, but it's also useful to think of building sustainable funding. Let's start with small donors. We have many small donors now, and they come about strictly by random. I think for the most part, they know someone involved with the organization. They see something on the internet that they like. You know, they're passionate about the subject, and we do get those donors. But what we need are sustaining contributions. In other words, donors who continue to give, not just on a one-off basis. Foundation grants I touched on, notoriously difficult to get and probably slim pickings for an organization like ours. Major gifts are a key source of funding for organizations like this. And when you build a base of support, what you do is you cultivate over time those people capable of being major donors. And the way you identify them is you see what other organizations they donate to. Almost every nonprofit organization has an annual report which lists its donors. And if you have a donor to IGI, and he or she is also a donor to some other organization, and they're giving that organization $10,000 a year, well, that's a person you want to meet with and cultivate as a major donor. And then, as I discussed earlier, legacies are important, but they come about much later. They're called planned gifts, but they're actually unplanned when the income comes in. And what I have done in other organizations is to encourage them to use planned gifts to build an endowment. If you have an endowment that's a regular source of funding, as anyone who's been involved with a college or university knows, that can cover a lot of your operating expenses. So encouraging and recognizing sustainer donors is a really important issue. The credit card option works really well for organizations like this. What you do is you encourage people to give on a regular basis through their Visa card, their American Express, their MasterCard, and this continues in perpetuity unless they take the initiative to stop it. So, successful organizations usually have hundreds, if not thousands, of supporters who give $100 a month, $50 a month, $25 a month, whatever they can afford. And then you have this major donor circle, and as I said, you identify the major donors from the pool of sustaining donors, and over time you can actually build a corpus of major donors who need to be recognized for their support. Everybody likes to be recognized for supporting an organization. You can do that in very simple ways. T-shirt, ball cap, we have those available now. Cloisonne pin, I've got one on that Eric shared with me last night. This identifies you to other people as a donor to IGI, and it sometimes prompts conversations that could persuade someone this is a worthy organization. Listing in an annual report is important. Newsletters and websites, special quarterly briefings for the major donors, say $5,000 a year and up. You have a special online session for them to give them a state-of-the-art report on what we're doing and how. Honors at the annual conference or dinner. If you have an annual conference or dinner, you want to recognize those people who've been major supporters. Give some of those people a discounted fee for the annual conference. So, motivating giving. The single greatest sin that nonprofit organizations commit is not thanking their donors enough. Donors want to be thanked. They want to be thanked once, they want to be thanked twice, they want to be thanked 3 times. I can tell you that, I made a donation to the ASPCA, I think, about 5 years ago. And now I get requests for donations for any animal rights organization in the country. But they never said thank you. So why should I give again, right? So I think that, recognizing the donors in every way possible is really critical. One of the things that motivates donors is identifying specific items to be funded by gifts at various levels. I was involved with the Point Foundation for several years from its inception. It's a scholarship fund for LGBTQ youth. And what we did was explain to the donors that if you give $1,000 a year, you're buying textbooks for this student at university for a year. If you give $5,000 a year, you're paying for a semester of room and board. If you give $10,000 a year, you're paying for a year of room and board, and so on. In other words, tying donations to a specific result is a motivating factor for many people who give. And I've had really great success with that. We could do 25 live presentations to prenatal classes. We have information handouts for 600 Planned Parenthood chapters, or we could create them. And of course, we want to report quarterly on what those results are to the people who support us. And it's important to talk to major donors frequently and not just to ask for money. There's an old adage in fundraising which goes, if you ask for money, you get advice. If you ask for advice, you get money. So keep your major donors engaged. Let them know not only that they're appreciated, but ask them for their input, their opinions, their suggestions. Video interviews with top 3 financial supporters to show at the annual conference or dinner is a successful technique. Desert Age Project in Palm Springs has an annual gala with celebrities and so forth, and they always honor at least 3 major donors at that gala. They bring them up to the stage. Sometimes they have a heartfelt story to tell, and then they get a plaque, an award, some form of recognition that I think is important to them. Planned giving. It doesn't happen by accident. The best-run nonprofit organizations offer estate planning assistance to people who express a willingness to donate as a legacy. And don't forget the small donor who may have hidden wealth. Somebody who gives you $10 a month for 5 years may die with few or no beneficiaries, and all of a sudden you have a $500,000 house. That can be a major gift for the organization. I've seen that happen. And as I said, create an endowment with these planned gifts to underwrite administrative costs and operational expenses. You never have to worry about justifying the source of that funding to sustain the organization. As I say, most foundations appear to support circumcision. I looked up Bill and Melinda Gates, the American Urological Association, its Global Philanthropic Committee, something called Indinsight.org. They partner with local public health authorities internationally to promote circumcision. I am not a foundation expert. I think that if you went to the Council on Foundations and were willing to do enough research, you just might find a foundation or two that supports this kind of work. But getting a grant from them and tracking that grant is an additional burden to the organization. So I wondered what the cost of circumcision actually is. Typically, it's $250 or $500, depending on the location, the surgeon's fees, anesthesia, if any, facility fees. And the additional costs may include pre-op consultation and exams, lab tests and screenings, post-op medications, post-op care and follow-up. Just to give you an example, in Atlanta, a typical circumcision costs $485 for children, dollars for children up to 28 days, $2,200 for males 12 years and older. Now, why is this significant? Well, some insurance plans cover the procedure and some don't. Without insurance coverage, circumcision can cost $1,000 or more. However, you can buy a home circumcision kit with disinfecting tools and step-by-step instructions for only $30 to $200. Before you try this on your newborn, you might want to try it on a dog or cat. I had no idea that such things were available, right? Anyway, the UK National Health Service stopped funding routine circumcisions. Actually, Eric says in the 40s. What I saw on the internet was the official cessation of that was in 2022, which is why there are many more uncircumcised males in the United Kingdom now. Also, as others will tell you, New Zealand, Australia, other global English-speaking countries. So where is the potential corporate support for IGI? That would come from organizations who have an interest in saving this money. Corporations typically don't support nonprofit organizations unless there's a payback for them, right? Sometimes they do it out of goodwill, but more frequently it comes from, marketing and public relations considerations. United Healthcare Optum has 102 million members, Elevance Health 47.5, Centene, the largest Medicaid managed care provider, 28 million, Kaiser Permanente 12.7 million, and so on. Now, I read somewhere, again on the internet, there are about 3.6 million babies born every year in the United States. Let's assume that half of them, 1.8 million, are male. And of that 1.8 million, let's say 1 million, do not circumcise for religious reasons. If the average cost of circumcision, like in Atlanta, is $485 or $500, and you have 1 million males every year being circumcised, for $500, that's $500 million. That's not pocket change. If you can persuade these corporate, these healthcare providers that they can save money, you may be able to get them to support the work of the organization. So what we need is money, right? I mean, every nonprofit organization needs secure financial support. And I'm going to kick it off by pledging $100 a month on my Visa card after we leave the conference. So I hope those of you can afford it, or if you can't afford $100 a month, give $50 a month. If you can't afford that, give $25 a month. But whatever you give will go to growing this organization and building a more successful movement. Thank you.